Picture this. Silicon Valley's brainiest battleground, Stanford Nexus University, where the air's thick with startup dreams and cold brew cash. It's March 2025, and room 305's about to ignite. Dr. Evelyn Carter, the calculus queen with an MIT pedigree and a chip on her shoulder, squares off against Elon Musk. Yeah, that Elon. The rocket-launching, Tesla-driving mad genius auditing her class like it's a side hustle. She's got a whiteboard loaded with a math monster meant to bury him. He's got a marker and a smirk that says, "Game on." The kids, they're grabbing popcorn, or Chipotle wrappers, because this isn't just a lecture, it's a heavyweight title fight, and the bell's about to ring. Who's walking out champ? Buckle up, America. This one's going viral. Stanford Nexus University sat smack dab in the pulsing heart of Silicon Valley, a sprawling campus where glass towers gleamed under the California sun and steel-rimmed buildings buzzed with the electric hum of innovation. It was late March 2025, spring break, hangovers still clinging to the edges of the student body. Kids crisscrossing the quad in flip-flops and hoodies, stamped with Nexus Pride, or CS Majors Do It Better. Their backpacks slung low, stuffed with laptops, half-eaten in-out burgers, and dreams of coding the next unicorn startup. The air was thick with startup fever, a mix of ambition and overpriced cold brew wafting from the campus coffee carts, where baristas slung oat milk lattes like they were dealing cards at Vegas. Room 305 of the Math Sciences building was the crucible for the university's sharpest minds, a lecture hall, where whiteboards sagged under the weight of equations so dense they looked like modern art, and the faint drone of laptops mingled with the rustle of Chipotle wrappers crinkling under desks. Evelyn Carter owned that turf, a 5'10" dynamo with an MIT pedigree chiseled into her resume, and a stare that could melt steel beams like a blowtorch through butter. Her advanced calculus class was a rite of passage, a gauntlet legendary for its bone-crushing rigor and infamous for her wild tangents into social justice that left students scratching their heads or rolling their eyes so hard they risked pulling a muscle. That Monday morning, the vibe in room 305 crackled like the calm before a Bay Area thunderstorm, the kind that rolls in off the Pacific and turns the sky a bruised purple. The whiteboard didn't flex its usual chaos of derivatives, integrals, and differential sprawls. Instead, a single line blazed in red marker. Today's mission, math for a better tomorrow, stark and bold, like a coach's pep talk scrawled before a big game. Students trickled in slow and uneven, some bleary-eyed from all-night coding binges, others hyped on Red Bull and the latest TikTok gossip swirling around campus. Jake Russo, a wiry junior with a man bun tied tight and a smirk that screamed, "I've got this," slumped into his front row seat, cracking open a Monster Energy can with a hiss that cut through the morning quiet like a gunshot at dawn. Next to him, Tyler Hansen, a San Diego surfer transplant with sun-bleached hair and a perpetual whatever grin, sprawled across his chair, scrolling X on his phone, hunting for the latest Elon Musk meme to screenshot and send to his buddies back home. Mia Patel, a sophomore coder with a quiet intensity that burned beneath her surface, sat a row back, her notebook flipped open to a problem set she'd been wrestling with until 3 a.m. Her coffee-stained hoodie, a badge of honor earned through sleepless nights and endless lines of code. Then there was the wild card, the X factor, that had the whole campus buzzing like a hive before a honey harvest. In the back row, sprawled across a folding chair that groaned under his 6'2" frame, sat Elon Musk, the man, the myth, the Silicon Valley legend. No suit, no swagger, just a faded SpaceX tee clinging to his lanky build jeans ripped at the knees like he'd been climbing launch pads, and a yellow legal pad scratched with doodles of rockets equations and what might have been a sketch of a Martian dome. He wasn't enrolled, not in the traditional sense, not coughing up tuition or sweating over grades. Word on the street spread through late-night dorm whispers, and a viral X thread that had racked up 10,000 retweets was that he'd sweet-talked Dean Harold Grayson into letting him audit the class, claiming he needed to keep the math chops sharp between Tesla launches SpaceX missions and daydreams of colonizing Mars. Most kids pegged him as a publicity stunt, a billionaire slumming it for clout, or maybe a quick photo op to juice his X following. But a few, like Mia, who'd caught him lingering after lectures, flipping through textbooks with a focus that rivaled her own, wondered if he was the real deal, a guy who actually gave a damn about the numbers. Not just the headlines. The clock ticked to 9:02 a.m., and Dr. Carter strode in sharp and purposeful, her navy blazer crisp as a freshly printed Benjamin, her graying bob swaying like a metronome set to no nonsense. She didn't waste a beat, didn't bother with pleasantries, just clapped her hands loud and commanding like a football coach, rallying the team at halftime of a tied game. "All right, crew, listen up," she said, her voice booming across the room, bouncing off the walls and snapping every head to attention. "Calculus is the MVP of the sciences, hands down, nobody's arguing that point. It's the backbone of physics engineering hell, even your fancy AI algorithms that keep Silicon Valley humming. But it's 2025, folks, and we've got bigger games to play than just crunching numbers for kicks. Climate's on fire out there, wildfires chewing up half the state, inequalities spiking harder than a Wall Street stock crash, and math's got to step up to the plate, swing for the fences, and actually make a dent in the mess we're in." She clicked her remote with a flourish, and a PowerPoint slide blazed onto the screen, bright and jarring, not a single X or Y in sight. No traces of the calculus they'd signed up for, just a pie chart breaking down STEM enrollment by race, income, zip code, and every other metric she could cram in buzzwords like equity, access, and systemic bias, screaming in bold Helvetica like a motivational poster gone rogue. "Some of you," she went on, her voice dropping low and pointed like a sniper lining up a shot, "are parked in those seats because the system handed you a golden ticket wrapped in a bow, private tutors on speed dial, fancy prep schools with Ivy, climbing the walls, daddy's Amex paving the way before you could even spell derivative. Fonzars. Not everyone gets that first-class ride, not the kid from Oakland scraping by on a busted Chromebook, not the girl from Fresno who's never seen a graphing calculator outside a YouTube tutorial." Her gaze flicked to Elon, quick as a pitcher's fastball streaking across the plate, and the room went silent as a graveyard at midnight, every breath held, every rustle stilled. Jake nudged Tyler under the desk, whispering fast and low. "She's throwing shade at Musk, bro. It's on like Donkey Kong," his grin splitting wide enough to show teeth. Tyler smirked, leaning back in his chair. "Dude, he's Elon. He's probably calculating how to buy her tenure and turn this joint into a Tesla showroom." Mia frowned, her pencil tapping a nervous rhythm against her notebook. She'd signed up for integrals differentials. The hard stuff, not a lecture on privilege that felt like a sociology class crashing her math party, and this detour was grinding her gears harder than a stripped transmission. A couple of freshmen in the back swapped looks, one muttering, "Is this going to be extra credit or what?" while his buddy shrugged, too busy Snapchatting Musk's Carter round one to his pledge brothers to give a damn. The tension was thick as a double-stacked in-out burger animal style, every kid in the room waiting for the first shot to ring out like a starter pistol at the Rose Bowl. Jake leaned forward, elbows digging into his desk, his voice a conspiratorial hiss. $20 says she's got a whole PowerPoint deck queued up just to roast him slide by slide. His eyes glinting with the thrill of the bet. Tyler nodded, smirking. "Yeah, but check him out. He's chill as a popsicle in a snowstorm, doesn't even look fazed." Elon didn't budge, didn't twitch, just kept tapping his pen against his legal pad. A slow, steady beat, like he was counting down to a rocket launch, or maybe the punchline of a joke only he knew. Then, with the timing of a guy who'd synced Falcon touchdowns to the millisecond, he raised his hand high, slow, deliberate, like a flag unfurling over a battlefield staking his claim. The whispers died fast, replaced by a collective gasp that sucked the air out of the room, every phone poised, every notebook forgotten. Dr. Carter's jaw tightened, her lips pressing into a thin line like she'd just bitten into a lemon and hated the taste. She'd spent decades shutting down cocky undergrads with a single glare, a glance that could send a frat boy scurrying back to his keg stands. But this wasn't some kid with a K- and a hangover. This was the guy who'd turned PayPal into a cash printing machine, Tesla into a cultural juggernaut, SpaceX into a sci-fi blockbuster that had NASA eating its dust. And he was stepping up to her plate, swinging for the fences. She folded her arms, heels planted firm, like she was ready to slug it out in a bar brawl, her blazer stretching taut across her shoulders. "All right, Mr. Musk," she said, her voice cool as ice but edged with steel sharp enough to cut through the bullshit. "Let's hear it. What's the big shot the Silicon Valley rock star got to say about my class? My rule's my game." The room tilted forward, every kid leaning in phones, angled notebooks abandoned, because this wasn't just a lecture anymore, not a dry run through formulas and proofs. It was a heavyweight title fight, Silicon Valley-style broadcast live from the heart of Stanford Nexus, and nobody, not Jake, not Tyler, not Mia, not even the freshman Snapchatting in the back, was blinking not for a second, not when the bell was about to ring and the gloves were coming off. Elon stood up, all 6'2" of him, rising from that creaky folding chair like a quarterback stepping up to the line at the Super Bowl, the room leaning in close, like they were packed into the stands at Levi's Stadium, waiting for the kickoff snap, every eye locked on him sharp and unblinking. Even the kids who usually zoned out scrolling X for the latest Travis Scott drop or sneaking bites of cold Taco Bell under their desks snapped to attention, their phones hovering mid-air, their half-chewed burritos forgotten. "Dr. Carter?" He started, his voice low but steady, cutting through the electric hum of the lecture hall like a blade through warm sourdough, fresh from a San Francisco bakery. "I get it, math's a tool, no question about that. No one's arguing the point. But it's not just any tool, it's the freaking Swiss Army knife of the universe, the ultimate multi-tool. Newton used it to crack gravity wide open, like he was busting a piñata at a 4th of July barbecue, spilling out the laws of motion that keep the world spinning. Einstein took it and twisted time into a pretzel, showed us how clocks slow down when you're hauling ass near a black hole, bending reality like a sci-fi flick. Me, I used it to land a rocket on a dime out in the Atlantic, tweaking trajectories so tight we could hit a drone ship the size of a Costco parking lot. No splashdown, no mess. If we ditch that power swap it out for politics, we're not lifting up the underdog, giving them a leg up. We're screwing every single kid in this room out of a playbook that actually wins games, that builds futures." A wave of murmurs rolled through the class, like the roar of a crowd at a Warriors game after a Steph Curry three-pointer from half-court. Jake Russo, that wiry junior with the man bun and the cocky grin, scribbled Swiss Army knife in his spiral notebook, his pen digging into the paper, grinning like he'd just found the golden ticket to a Willy Wonka factory tour. Mia Patel, the quiet sophomore who'd rather debug Python scripts than trade small talk, nodded slow and thoughtful, her pencil hovering over a half-solved integral she'd been battling since the last time the 49ers made the playoffs, her mind racing to keep up. Tyler Hansen, the laid-back surfer dude from San Diego with sun-bleached hair and a vibe that screamed, "Catch me at the beach," leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, taking it all in like he was judging a perfect 10-footer at Mavericks, every word sinking in deep. Up front, a couple of freshmen swapped quick glances, one whispering, "He's kind of dropping facts here," under his breath, while his buddy nodded, too busy texting, "Musk just went off," to his group chat to lift his head, the message pinging across campus like wildfire. Dr. Carter didn't flinch, not yet, not even a twitch. She stepped closer, her heels clicking on the linoleum floor like a referee's whistle, piercing the chaos of a pickup game, her navy blazer catching the overhead lights like she was suiting up for a Monday Night Football showdown. "That's a cute little tale, Mr. Musk," she said, her tone sharp enough to slice through a stack of midterm papers or carve up a Thanksgiving turkey with precision. But let's not play dumb here. Let's not kid ourselves. You're parked in that seat back there because you had tutors lining up around the block like fans at a Lakers game private schools with more ivy than a Harvard courtyard and a bank account fatter than a Silicon Valley IPO before you could even grow a decent 5 o'clock shadow. Most kids don't get that VIP past that golden handshake. They're lucky if they see a TI-84 calculator before junior year scraping by on hand-me-down textbooks and library Wi-Fi, while you were out there building your little science fair projects with daddy's cash propping you up. The room went still for a beat, like the hush before a buzzer beater at the NCAA finals. Every breath held every eye darting between the two of them. Elon tilted his head just a fraction. A half smile tugging at the corner of his lips like he'd seen her play coming from a mile away, like he'd already run the numbers on her next move. "Fair point, Doc," he said, easy and smooth, as if they were swapping stories over IPAs at a dive bar off the 101. "I grew up with books stacked to the ceiling in my room back in Pretoria, and a Commodore 64 my dad probably got hustled for at some shady electronics shop down the street. No lie there. Had to figure out how to make that thing hum on my own. Though no user manual, no tech support. Just me, a screwdriver, and a whole lot of trial and error. But here's the kicker, Dr. Carter. Here's where it gets real. I didn't ace calculus because of a silver spoon shoved in my mouth, didn't have some butler handing me the answers on a platter. I aced it because I stayed up all night coding games from scratch 16 years old, hunched over that clunky machine with a bowl of soggy Cheerios, sitting there getting mushy debugging equations that crashed harder than a SpaceX booster on its first test hop, smoking circuits and all. He paused, letting that sink in, letting the weight of it settle over the room like a fog rolling in off the bay, his eyes sweeping the class like he was pitching Tesla stock to a packed house at a shareholder meeting in Palo Alto. "Took me 3 days once," he went on, his voice picking up a notch. 3 straight days, no sleep, just me and a quadratic that kept spitting out garbage like a broken slot machine. Tore my hair out, banged my head against the desk until I cracked it wide open at sunrise, figured out a substitution trick that made it sing felt like I'd climbed Everest in a pair of flip-flops and a tank top. That's what this class could hand every kid in here. Not my bankroll, not a fancy crib in the hills, not a private jet with my name on it, but that aha moment when the numbers snap into place like a perfect Lego set, and you realize you can build something real, something that lasts. A bridge, an app, a freaking starship, doesn't matter what they dream up. Why swap that out for a pie chart that's just gonna guilt trip us into fighting over scraps when we could be out there winning the whole damn game? The room lit up, buzzing like a tailgate party before a USC versus UCLA showdown, horns honking and all. Tyler leaned over to Jake, whispering fast and low. "Dudes dropping truth bombs left and right. I'd rather crunch numbers than crunch feelings any day of the week." His voice carrying just far enough to spark a snicker from the row behind a couple of kids nodding like they'd just heard gospel. Jake tapped his pen against his knee like he was keeping time to a beat. "Yeah, but she's not letting that fly, bro. Watch her swing back. She's about to go full beast mode on him." Mia glanced up from her notebook, her dark eyes flicking between Elon and Dr. Carter like she was solving a puzzle with egos instead of variables, her mind racing to keep up with the verbal ping-pong match unfolding in front of her. A couple of kids in the back started whispering, "Bets? $10 says she shuts him down hard. 5 says he doubles down and keeps swinging," while a girl in a Nirvana tee slid her phone out, hitting record smooth and discreet, because this was the kind of drama you didn't miss, not for a second, not when it was going viral in real time. Dr. Carter's eyes narrowed her lips, pressing into a thin line, like she'd just bitten into a Sour Patch Kid and hated the pucker. She wasn't about to let some tech titan with 1 million X followers and a cult following steal her show, not in her lecture hall, not on her turf, not when she'd spent years building this class into a fortress of her own making. "Bold words, Mr. Musk," she fired back, her voice dripping with sarcasm, thick as BBQ sauce at a Texas cook-off, enough to drown a rack of ribs. but talks cheaper than a beat-up Toyota on Craigslist with a busted transmission. Let's see if that big brain of yours, that genius IQ you love to flaunt, can cash the check your mouth's been writing all morning, or if you're just another hotshot with a loud voice and an empty playbook. Atinasaran. She spun on her heel, snatched a fat blue marker from the tray, with a grip that could have crushed a beer can, and attacked the whiteboard like it was a punching bag in a gym down on Market Street, sketching a beast of an equation that sprawled across 3 panels like a math professor's revenge fantasy, brought to life a triple integral stuffed to the brim with exponential decay trigonometric substitutions, and a series expansion thrown in for good measure like a cherry on a sundae from hell itself. It was a nightmare straight out of a final exam horror story, the kind of problem that'd make a grad student weep into their 5th espresso shot at 3 a.m. praying for mercy, or at least a passing grade. She stepped back, arms folded tight, smirking like she'd just thrown the game-winning touchdown pass with no time left on the clock. "Since you're the calculus MVP around here," she said, her voice syrupy with mock sweetness, like a cheerleader faking nice before the claws come out. "Solve this beast, go ahead and show us. Or maybe you'd rather call up your Tesla crew, get one of your rocket nerds to parachute in and bail you out because I'm betting that's more your speed." Or, the class exploded, half laughing their asses off, loud and raucous like a frat party after a keg stand, half gasping in pure, unfiltered shock mouths, hanging open like they'd just seen a car wreck on the 405. Jake leaned back, arms crossed, grinning wide. "No way he pulls this off, bro. He's cooked toast, Dunizzo," his voice dripping with glee at the chaos. Mia bit her lip, staring at the board like it was the final boss in a Dark Souls run. No checkpoints, no cheat codes, just her and the grind. Tyler let out a low whistle, long and slow. "That's brutal. She's out for blood. She wants his head on a platter," his surfer drawl cutting through the noise. A few kids up front muttered, "Is that even solvable, like legally?" While another groaned, "I'd drop this class faster than a hot potato. If I had to touch that thing, I'd be out the door running." Elon didn't twitch, didn't flinch. Not even a flicker of doubt crossed his face. He shoved his hands in his jeans pockets, strolled to the front of the room with the lazy confidence of a guy who'd stared down worse than a smug prof, and a whiteboard full of doom, a guy who'd faced down rocket failures and boardroom sharks and come out swinging every time. He picked up the marker, twirling it between his fingers like a pool shark, sizing up a trick shot at a dive bar on a Saturday night, or a gunslinger spinning his revolver before a duel. "Game on," he said, cool as a Pacific sunset, his voice steady and sure, and the room held its breath like they were waiting for the opening whistle at March Madness, every nerve on edge, every heart pounding. Back in Pretoria, way back when Elon had cut his teeth on math like this. Late nights in a cramped room that smelled of burnt coffee, and solder desk buried under chipped mugs, tangled circuit boards, and stacks of dough-geared textbooks, the glow of that Commodore 64 lighting up his teenage face like a beacon in the dark. He'd wrestle integrals until the roosters crowed, scratching out solutions on scraps of paper, once spending 48 hours straight. No sleep, no breaks, just him a notepad and a bag of stale Doritos he'd scavenged from the pantry, debugging a rocket trajectory formula that wouldn't play nice. He'd hit a wall with a differential that refused to balance, tore his hair out, cursed in 2 languages, until he cracked it with a substitution trick at sunrise, chugging warm, flat Coke like it was champagne at a victory party. That hustle, that relentless grind, had wired his brain for monsters like Carter's equation, etched it deep into his bones like a tattoo he'd never shake. He didn't just know calculus, didn't just study it. He lived it, breathed it, dreamed it, in between sketches of electric cars and Martian colonies every night, a new challenge every morning, a new win. And now with 50 kids watching jaws on the floor, phones rolling, and a prof smirking like she'd already clinched the title he was about to show them all, what he was made of. What he'd always been made of since day one. Elon stood at the whiteboard, marker in hand, twirling it between his fingers like a rock star spinning a mic stand before a sold-out crowd. At Coachella, every eye in the room glued to him like he was about to drop the performance of a lifetime. The equation Dr. Carter had slapped up there was a beast, a monstrosity straight out of a math nerd's nightmare. A triple integral bloated with exponential decay, trigonometric twists and turns, and a series expansion that sprawled across 3 panels, like a graffiti mural gone wild, tagging every inch of white space. It wasn't just tough, wasn't just a challenge. It was a gauntlet thrown down with a smirk, a middle finger to anyone who dared step up the kind of problem that'd send a grad student sprinting for the nearest dive bar to drown their panic in a pitcher of cheap Bud Light, praying for a miracle, or at least a curve. But Elon didn't blink, didn't hesitate, didn't even flinch. He just tilted his head, sizing it up like a mechanic eyeballing a busted V8 under the hood of a '69 Mustang, ready to rip it apart piece by piece and make it roar like new. "Okay," he said, half to himself, half to the room, his voice casual like he was picking toppings for a late-night pizza run. "This is a fun one. A real brain tickler. Let's dive in and see what we've got." "Sonesios." He turned to Dr. Carter, smooth and easy, as if they were picking teams for a pickup game at the local YMCA, not squaring off in a Silicon Valley showdown. "Quick heads up, Doc, before I get rolling, you want the standard slog through the textbook steps, the kind they teach in every Calc 101 class, coast to coast, or the hack I cooked up back in 16, while tweaking Falcon 9's landing algo to keep it from turning into a fireball over the Atlantic?" The words hit the room like a buzzer beater at the Final Four, a clutch shot from half court that nobody saw coming, and for a split second you could hear a pin drop on the linoleum. Every breath held every jaw slack. Dr. Carter blinked, her arms still crossed tight, her smirk flickering like a TV losing signal during the World Series, caught off guard for the first time since she'd stepped into the hall that morning. "You cooked up a hack?" she said, her voice catching just enough to let the doubt slip through like a fumble on the goal line, her confidence wobbling for a heartbeat before she tried to lock it back down. "Yeah," Elon replied, shrugging like it was no big deal, like he was talking about swapping out a flat tire, not rewriting math on the fly. "It's a riff on Euler's method, cuts the steps in half, keeps it tight and lean. Figured it out when we had to recalculate, thrust mid-flight clock ticking down, booster screaming toward the ocean, saved us from a $200 million splashdown and a PR shitstorm that'd have CNN camped out at my door for a month." He didn't wait for her to call. The play didn't give her a chance to regroup, just spun back to the whiteboard and started writing, his hand moving with the kind of fluid precision you'd expect from a guy who'd engineered a car that could smoke a Porsche on the drag strip and leave it eating dust. "Step 1, he said loud enough for the back row to catch every word, his voice carrying over the hum of the room. "You collapse this mess right here with a substitution. See this exponential chunk with the e to the x and all that jazz? Think of it like compressing a video file for YouTube. Same vibe, same punch, less bloat, less clutter. All the good stuff stays intact, and you're not wasting time on the fluff." "Oh," the class leaned in, pencils scratching paper like they were taking notes at a Jay-Z masterclass, phones popping out of pockets like jack-in-the-boxes ready to capture every second. Mia Patel raised her hand, timid at first, but fired up her voice, cutting through the hum like a referee's whistle at a pickup game. "Wait, hold up. Can you break that down a little more? I've been tanking these integrals all semester, bombing them left and right. And I'm one bad grade away from kissing my scholarship goodbye. My parents are gonna flip." Elon grinned, spinning the marker mid-air like a trick shot at a skate park. "Sure thing, Mia, no sweat," he said like they'd been lab partners since day one, trading notes over Red Bull and ramen. "Imagine you're juicing a Tesla battery pack, right? You don't want extra loops sucking up power-wasting juice you could use elsewhere. Same deal here, strip it down to the core, keep it humming smooth, and you're in business. No wasted moves." He sketched a quick side diagram, fast and sharp, a little flowchart tying the math to something real, something tangible, not just abstract symbols on a page, and Mia's eyes lit up like she'd just scored courtside seats to a Warriors-Lakers showdown, her pencil flying across her notebook like she'd unlocked a cheat code to the universe. Phones were everywhere, now Jake Russo's iPhone propped up on his desk filming steady Tyler Hansen's Samsung, zooming in tight a girl in a Cal hoodie going live on Instagram, with Elon just buddied my prof scrawled across the screen in neon pink, the likes piling up fast. Elon kept rolling his voice, a mix of geeked-out hype and deadpan chill that hooked the room like a viral TikTok dance. "This next part right here," he said, circling a tangle of signs and cosings with a quick flick of the wrist. "You zap it with a lapless transform slick little move I snagged from some old French texts back when I was a kid, digging through library stacks. Translations are trash, by the way. Total garbage, go straight to the source if you can. Laplace wrote this stuff like he was dropping bars pure poetry in numbers." He paused, glancing at Dr. Carter with a grin that was half tease, half respect. "You ever read him in the original doc?" Guy had flow that'd make Kendrick Lamar sit up and take notes, maybe even sample it for his next track. The class cracked up a rumble, spreading through the rows like a wave at a Dodgers game, loud and loose and full of juice. Jake muttered to Tyler, fast and low, "He's roasting her mid-equation, bro. This is straight fire, pure gold," his grin splitting wide. Dr. Carter's arms stayed locked her face, a mask of control, but her eyes were scrambling, darting like she was trying to keep up with a guy who'd just turned her trap into a sold-out, show her plan to dunk on him slipping through her fingers like sand. "This isn't your personal seminar, Mr. Musk!" She snapped her voice, slicing through the laughs like a coach's whistle at practice, loud and shrill. "Solve it or sit down, quit the stand-up routine and get to the point." Elon raised an eyebrow, unfazed. "Cool as ice." "Pretty sure I'm doing both here, Doc. You threw the fastball. I'm just swinging for the bleachers and the crowd's eating it up." The chuckles kicked up again, louder this time, rolling through the room like thunder, and he kept going, unraveling the series expansion next, his marker dancing through terms like he was choreographing a halftime show for the Super Bowl, every move sharp, every line clean. "Here's where it gets spicy real tasty," he said, tapping a cluster of coefficients with a quick jab. "You could grind this out the long way, 3 boards, maybe 4 if you're into self-inflicted pain masochist style, or use my shortcut and wrap it up in 10 lines tops. Textbook's cool if you've got a weekend to kill and nothing better to do, but I like my math like my rockets, fast, clean, and landing on target every damn time, no fluff, no fuss." Tyler leaned over to Jake, whispering quick, "He's not human, bro. I'd be crying into my board shorts if that was me up there sweating bullets." His voice low but awestruck. Mia scribbled like a madwoman, muttering under her breath, "This actually clicks, holy crap, this is it!" Her pencil flying across the page, like she was decoding the Matrix one line at a time, her hands shaking with the thrill of it. A freshman in a backward Giants cap whispered to his buddy, "Is he allowed to just do this? Like, is this legal?" And the buddy shrugged. "Dude, he's Elon. He's basically Tony Stark minus the suit and the attitude. What's she gonna do?" Zah. By the time Elon hit the halfway mark, the equation was peeling open layer by layer, like a perfectly executed play in the red zone, every step a touchdown. And the class was all in less on the math itself, more on the guy making it look like a slam dunk with a wink and a grin like he was born for this. Dr. Carter's face was a thundercloud, now dark and stormy, her blazer straining at the seams, like it might pop a button under the pressure. She'd built this whole setup to bury him to prove he was all hype. No substance, just another rich kid coasting on a name. But he was flipping the script, rewriting her playbook in real time, turning her whiteboard into his stage. "Enough with the commentary, enough with the showboating," she barked, cutting through his flow like a ref calling a foul. Her voice sharp and jagged. "Finish it or admit you're out of your league. Stop wasting my time and theirs with this circus act." Elon didn't flinch, didn't pause, just kept writing his marker, squeaking against the board like a sneaker on hardwood, loud and clear. "Out of my league?" he said almost to himself, a quiet chuckle under his breath. "Nah, Doc, I've been playing this game since I was a kid, back when I had nothing but a desk and a dream. Let's see how it lands. Let's see who's still standing. Whem. Back in Pretoria, those long nights had forged him 16 years old in a room that smelled of burnt coffee and solder desk buried under chipped mugs, tangled circuit boards, and stacks of library books with cracked spines, the glow of that Commodore 64 casting shadows on the walls like a sci-fi movie set. He'd wrestle integrals until dawn, scratching out solutions on whatever paper he could find, once spending a whole weekend cracking a partial differential that wouldn't budge. No sleep, no breaks, just him, and the numbers fighting it out. He'd hit a wall with one that refused to balance, tore his hair out, cursed in Afrikaans and English, until he nailed it with a trick he'd pulled from a dusty Newton tome he'd snagged from the library stacks at 2 a.m., finally cracking it wide open as the sun came up, chugging flat Coke like it was a victory toast. No tutors, no prep school polish, no silver platter, just him a stack of paper and a hunger to figure shit out. A hunger that burned bright and never quit. That was the Elon up there now, not the headlines, not the billions, the grinder, the kid who'd turned math into muscle memory, etched it into his soul, and he was about to drop the mic so hard the room would feel the shockwaves all the way to the bay. Elon was mid-stride, tearing through the whiteboard beast like a running back, dodging tacklers in the red zone, his marker flying across the panels with the precision of a Tom Brady pass in the clutch, when the lecture hall door slammed open loud as a shotgun blast at a Texas tailgate rocking the room on its hinges. Dean Harold Grayson stormed in, all 5'8" of him, barrel-chested and bristling tweed jacket stretched tight across his frame, like it was about to burst, bald spot gleaming under the buzzing fluorescence, like a polished Super Bowl trophy held high. "Evelyn," he barked, his voice rough as a linebacker's playbook scratched out after a losing season. "Crisis upstairs now, curriculum rollouts hitting a brick wall like a bad snap. We need you in the war room. Pronto, let's move, move, move." Dr. Carter's shoulders eased, just a hair, a lifeline, dropping from the sky right when she was drowning in the deep end, her tight smile flashing like a quarterback spotting an open receiver in overtime. She grabbed her laptop fast, like it was a get-out-of-jail-free card in a Monopoly game gone south. "Guess we'll have to pause this little circus act," she said, her tone dripping with fake pity, thick as molasses on a southern biscuit. "Rain check, Mr. Musk, better luck next time, maybe bring your A-game then." She took 2 steps toward the exit, her heels clicking sharp and quick like a referee's whistle signaling the end of a blowout. But Elon's voice cut through cool and steady like a quarterback calling an audible with 10 seconds left on the clock in the 4th quarter. "Hold up, Dean, hold the line," he said, not even turning from the board, his marker still dancing across the equation, like it was a play he'd run 1,000 times. "If she bolts now, it's not a rain check, it's a tap-out, a forfeit, plain and simple." She challenged me in front of 50 witnesses, threw down the gauntlet like we're at WrestleMania main event style. "Walking away now says winning's the goal, not learning, not growing. And that's a weak-ass move for a classroom, a shitty lesson for these kids who deserve better." The room froze solid. Grayson's bushy eyebrows shooting up like they'd been hit with a cattle prod, his jaw tightening like he'd just taken a hit from a defensive end. "You telling me how to run my school, son?" he growled, stepping forward, loafers squeaking on the linoleum like a coach pacing the sidelines in a tied game. Elon shook his head, still scribbling lines like it was just another day at SpaceX mission control. "Nope, not at all. Dean just calling the play as I see it, reading the scoreboard. Dr. Carter wanted to test if I'm all talk, all hype, no substance. I'm halfway through her beast right here, tearing it apart, step-by-step balls in her court. Now she's got to decide if she's in or out." "Ah!" The class crackled with tension, like a thunderstorm rolling over the bay. Jake Russo, whispering to Tyler Hansen fast and urgent, "Bro, he's got cojones of steel calling out the dean too, he's doubling down," his voice buzzing with the thrill of it. Tyler nodded quick. "Yeah, dude, this is straight-up Monday Night Raw vibes, Musk versus the world," his surfer drawl cutting through the hum. Mia Patel sat wide-eyed, her pencil dangling in mid-air, the drama hitting harder than a season finale cliffhanger on Netflix, her heart pounding like she was watching a live feed of history. Then the curveball dropped out of nowhere, like a Hail Mary pass in the final seconds. Jamal Torres, a lanky physics major, rocking a faded Lakers cap, raised his hand. His voice shaky but desperate, cutting through the chaos. Elon, that series thing you're working on, could it model dark energy flows or something close? I've got a project due Friday end of the week, and my prof's gonna bury me alive, flunk me hard if I don't crack it. I'm begging here. The question landed like a live grenade, pure wild, and totally off-script, rocking the room with its raw need. Elon's eyes lit up like a kid spotting a new PlayStation 5 under the Christmas tree, wrapped and ready. Dark energy, hell yeah, Jamal, hang tight, let's do this, he said, his voice sparking with excitement. He flipped to a clean board section, fast and sharp sketching quick, tying the original problem to cosmology with a few deft strokes that flowed like a pro's jump shot. Tweak the decay rate right here, see this part, he said. Marker, squeaking loud. And bam, you've got a rough cut of cosmic expansion, kinda like what I used to spec out Starlink orbits back in 20, saved us a ton of headaches. The floodgates busted wide open like a dam breaking after a Cali rainstorm. A girl in a Cal hoodie shouted over the noise. What about wind turbine efficiency? I'm on a sustainability gig for my Enviro class, it's killing me. Her voice rising with hope. Tyler jumped in fast. Yo, how about AI training loops for my CS elective? I'm drowning in that crap. His surfer chill cracking under the weight of curiosity. Dr. Carter spun around her face, red as a Stanford jersey after a loss. This isn't a damn Q&A session. This isn't your personal help desk. She snapped, her voice cracking like a bat splintering on a fastball, loud and jagged under the strain. But the room was gone. Kids leaning forward yelling questions over each other like they were at a Springsteen encore screaming for one more song. What about battery optimization? Can it do quantum stuff? The chaos swelling loud and wild. Outside the hallway rumbled like a stampede word of the showdown, leaking fast on ex-students from other classes crowding in a kid with a skateboard hollering, "Musk is cooking Carter live, get your asses in here." His voice echoing down the corridor. Another held up a phone, streaming to Twitch chat, exploding with "Let's Golan, Math God," and rocket emojis piling up like digital confetti. Elon turned to Dr. Carter, holding out the marker like it was a peace pipe after a bar fight. How about a tag team, Doc, a little two-man play? You've got theory locked down tighter than Fort Knox. Nobody's touching your game there. I can bridge it to the real-world stuff these kids are jonesing for, hungry to sink their teeth into. Could blow their minds, maybe even yours, if you're up for it. Her face went full crimson, now red as a taillight blazer, looking like it might burst at the seams, her eyes flashing with fury, and something else, maybe panic. She'd wanted to bury him deep 6 feet under, not hand him a megaphone, a spotlight, and a damn fan club cheering from the rafters. "This is my class, my domain," she hissed, smacking the marker down on the tray so hard it bounced and rolled, clattering to the floor like a fumbled snap. "Not your playground, not your stage, you arrogant son of a—" Grayson stepped in, hands up like a ref, breaking up a scrum in the end zone. All right, let's cool it, folks. Let's take a timeout. Nobody needs to—" But Elon cut him off, smooth and quick, scooping the marker off the floor with a shrug. "Playground or not, Doc, I'm finishing what you started. Game's not over till the whistle blows." He turned back to the board, and in a blur that'd make a NASCAR pit crew jealous, wrapped the original equation textbook method first clean as a whistle, every step textbook perfect, then his hack right beside it, 10 lines flat, lean, and mean like a tuned-up Mustang. Then, for good measure, because why the hell not? He solved Jamal's dark energy twist, sketching a curve that made the kid gasp loud. "Holy crap, that's it, that's my project right there," his voice breaking with relief. Elon tossed in a quip light and easy. "NASA wishes they had this back in '69. Trust me, I checked the logs, those Apollo guys were flying blind compared to this." The class erupted wild and raw cheers, whoops a standing ovation from the front row, loud enough to shake the walls, drowning out Dr. Carter's protests, her voice lost in the roar. Grayson's jaw dropped, tweed sagging like he'd just seen a ghost, or maybe a miracle, his eyes wide as saucers. The hallway mob spilled in, now a dozen kids cramming the doorway, chanting, "Math, math, math," like it was a Friday night pep rally before the big game pom-poms and all. Dr. Carter stared at the boards. Her trap flipped into a trophy case, every line a testament to her miscalculation. Her hands trembling just enough to notice fingers twitching, like she was grasping for control that had slipped away. She'd built this to crush him, to grind him into the dirt, and wave the victory flag. But he'd turned it into a Super Bowl win, a blowout victory, with the crowd roaring his name, and she was left standing in the wreckage of her own play. Back at SpaceX, Elon had faced bigger stakes, higher pressure late nights in a trailer off the launch pad, coffee gone cold laptop frying under the strain, running sims until his eyes burned red and raw. Once he'd pulled an all-nighter, no breaks, no mercy to fix a thrust calc that had gone sideways, booster wobbling like a drunk on a tightrope, saved the mission with 10 minutes to spare the team cheering, like they'd won the World Series champagne popping in the control room. That was the muscly flexed now, not the headlines, not the billions, the raw, unfiltered grind, the guy who'd stared down failure and punched back harder every time. And he was showing 50 kids, plus a hallway full of stragglers' phones rolling faces alight, that math wasn't just numbers, wasn't just dry theory, it was a damn superpower, a weapon, a tool to build worlds, if you knew how to swing it. Right? If you had the guts to step up and take the shot. Elon stepped back from the whiteboard, dusting chalk off his hands like a pitcher shaking off dirt after a no-hitter in the 9th inning, the room still buzzing like a sold-out crowd at Oracle Arena after a Warriors comeback win. The boards behind him were a masterpiece, a work of art. 2 solutions to Dr. Carter's beast, side-by-side textbook. Pristine, every step laid out like a playbook for the ages, and his hack lean as a Formula car cutting through the track, plus Jamal's dark energy curve thrown in like a bonus track on a platinum album dropping unexpected fire. He turned to the class, his faded SpaceX tee streaked with blue marker from wrist to elbow, his voice cutting through the chaos like a PA announcer at the Rose Bowl, loud, clear, unshakable. All right, folks, here's the deal. The straight truth math doesn't give a damn about your politics, doesn't care about your paycheck, your zip code, or how many retweets you snag on X on a good day. It's the one place where the field's dead even level as a freshly paved highway. Truth doesn't play favorites, doesn't give a flying crap if you're a billionaire rolling in dough or a kid scraping by with a library card and a dream. We should keep it that way. Keep it real, keep it raw, keep it honest. That's the game we're playing here. He spun to Dr. Carter, dialing it down a notch, softening his tone like a coach talking a rookie off the ledge. You're a beast at this, Doc. A straight-up legend. I've read your papers, dug into them late at night when I should have been sleeping. That convergence stuff you dropped in 18? Pure gold, absolute fire. No one's touching that. Let's do it right. Let's run this play together. You bring the deep theory, the kind that fries brains, bends minds into knots. I'll show 'em how to build stuff that flies, rolls, powers the future, whatever they're dreaming up. Team up 2 heads better than 1, and we could turn this class into something epic. A legacy, not just a semester. The room held its breath, tense and tight, the hallway crowd craning their necks, phones still rolling like they were filming the climax of a Marvel blockbuster, the final showdown, where the hero lands the knockout punch. Dr. Carter stood there, her blazer too tight, stretched across her shoulders like it was holding her together by a thread, her hands clenched like she was gripping the last lifeline on a sinking ship. Fingers white at the knuckles. Dean Grayson coughed loud and awkward, ready to spin this into some admin win, a soundbite for the university newsletter, but she waved him off sharp as a referee's flag cutting through the noise. I screwed up, she said. Her voice low, almost lost in the hum of the room, a whisper that carried weight. Thought I was exposing a fraud. Thought I had you pegged as some rich kid coasting on hype skating by on name and cash. Turns out I was the one bluffing, the one faking it, judging you before the math got a vote, before the numbers told the story." She looked at Elon dead in the eye, then swept her gaze across the packed room, really seeing them maybe for the first time since she'd traded chalk for PowerPoint slides and pie charts. "You didn't just win this? Mr. Musk didn't just beat me at my own game? You flipped the script, rewrote the rules, and I'm the one eating crow standing here with egg on my face." The class went quiet, a stunned hush, like they'd just seen the twist in a Tarantino flick, blood and all. Jake Russo whispered to Tyler Hansen fast and low, "Did she just admit that out loud, bro? Did that just happen?" His voice buzzing with disbelief. Tyler nodded, slow. "Yeah, dude, she's folding, she's tapping out. This is wilder than a reality TV finale." His surfer drawl thick with awe. Mia Patel smiled, small but real. Her notebook, now a goldmine of Elon's tricks, a lifeline for her next exam, her next big break, her shoulders easing for the first time in weeks. The hallway kids started clapping slow at first, then building some just staring jaws slack like they'd witnessed a moon landing live on their phones, a piece of history unfolding in real time. Next week, room 305 was a madhouse, a full-on zoo, standing room only kids spilling into the aisles, like it was a Black Friday drop at Best Buy doors, open deals flying. The Musk meltdown had blown up on X clips, hitting 15 million views overnight. Hashtags like Math King, Carter Down, and Stanford Showdown, trending harder than a Taylor Swift album drop likes, and retweets piling up like digital cash. Elon kicked off after-hours jams. No fancy setup, no bells and whistles, just him, a whiteboard, and a stack of Papa John's boxes steaming in the corner, turning calculus into a playground for dreamers, a sandbox for the bold. Mia coded a solar grid, sim fast and fierce, slashed waist by 20%, grinning like she'd won the Powerball when it ran clean, her fingers trembling as she emailed it to her prof with "check this out" in the subject line. Jamal aced his dark energy project, flipped a Diminus to an Atlas with a model so tight his prof texted back, "Where the hell did you pull this from?" His voice shaking with pride when he showed it to Elon after class. Tyler mocked up a surfboard, design optimized for wave drag, tested it at Santa Cruz on a sunny Saturday, Snapchatting Elon a clip captioned, "Bro, it shreds smoother than butter. Thanks for the juice." The board cutting through waves like a knife. Dr. Carter ditched the pie charts. The PowerPoint sermons, the whole social justice sideshow, diving back into her first love, pure gritty math. No fluff, no filler, just the raw stuff that had hooked her back in her MIT days. One Tuesday, she and Elon co-taught a session on orbital mechanics, a tag team clinic, her precision meeting his wild tangents, in a mashup that had kids scribbling like they were chasing a championship ring, every page a trophy. She'd lay out Kepler's laws dry as a desert textbook, page after page of constants and proofs. Then Elon'd jump in fast and loose. "Okay, now picture slingshotting a Cybertruck around Mars. Here's how you crunch the numbers to not eat dust and crash hard." His marker flying like a quarterback drawing up a trick play. The room ate it up, devoured it, half the class begging to stay late, crowding around the board just to pick his brain, soak up every word, every trick, every spark. A month in, as Elon helped Jake tweak a drone flight path, curve smoother than a LeBron James layup in crunch time, arcing perfect through the air, Dr. Carter sidled up her blazer swapped for a Nexus tee loose and casual, her graying bob tucked behind her ears. "You could have roasted me that day, torched me good," she said. Her voice softer now, like a coach after the game, not a general at war. "Made me a meme from here to Miami, trending on every podcast, every X thread from Silicon Valley to New York, could have ended me right there. Why not? Why'd you hold back?" Elon shrugged, wiping grease off his hands with a rag, his faded Space XT smudged with chalk and motor oil. I don't win by torching people, Doc. Never have, never will. I build stuff, cars, rockets, futures, whatever's next. Same deal here. You're too good to waste on a beef, too sharp to let pride burn it down, and these kids deserve the best we've got. Both of us full throttle, no half measures. She smiled real this time, not the tight-lipped smirk from before, a genuine curve that lit her face, and nodded slow like she'd finally solved a proof she'd been wrestling with for years, a weight lifting off her chest. By semester's end, the class was lore a legend carved into Stanford Nexus history, the university hyping it in glossy ads, "Where Genius Meets Guts," with a slick shot of Elon and Dr. Carter at the board shoulder to shoulder, like a championship duo. Kids who'd dreaded math, who'd walked in shaking at the thought of integrals, now owned it, graphing curves like they were drawing up plays for the Super Bowl, every line a first down, every solution a touchdown fueled by a guy in a beat-up tee who'd turned a smackdown into a rocket launch, a spark into a wildfire. One afternoon, sun dipping over the quad, painting the sky orange and gold like a Cali postcard. Elon sat at the back, sketching a Mars base on his legal pad. Sharp sorry about that. Something didn't go as planned. Please try again. And if you're still seeing this message, go ahead and restart the app.